And we are live once again. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat. And I'm inviting you, this is Maria, I'm inviting you to join us ngayong gabing ito as we talk about social media. Pag mas marami bang followers sa social media, ibig sabihin ba nun sigurado o may garantiya na yung pagpanalo ng isang kandidato? We will talk about that with our invited expert ngayong gabing ito. Pero gusto ko rin po kayong imbitahan na sa darating na October 30, meron tayong webinar. It's with Dr. Chris Wright of Langham Partnership sa UK and Ireland. At pag-usapan po natin dito sa webinar na to, yung The Mission of God, Witnessing to the Whole Gospel. Ito po ay hinahandog sa inyo ng ASTRAD or the Asian School for Transformational Development, ang eskwelahan po ng ISAK. Ito pong eskwelahan na ito ay nag-o-offer ng non-formal courses, and soon we will offer formal courses on transformational development and intercultural or cross-cultural studies. Kaya iniimbitahan namin kayo na samahan nyo kami sa webinar na ito at kilalanin nyo itong isa sa aming mga International Board of Reference, si Dr. Chris Wright. He's a renowned author, theologian, Old Testament theologian, and of course, a servant of the global church. So join us on October 30. It's for free. Libre lang po ito. And we have limited slots. We only have 300 slots for people to join this webinar. Kaya mas maganda kung mag-register kayo ng mas maaga. And you may share the link that we will post on the comment section below para makapag-register din ang inyong mga kakamping or kakampi at mga kasama sa simbahan. Join us sa webinar na ito with Dr. Chris Wright. And of course, this will be in English. So if you have friends from all parts of the world, in the church, invite them to join us on October 30. That's 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m.
Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat. Muli iniimbita po namin kayo to join us dito sa ISIP-ISAK Conversations on Faith and Society. Ang aming pong guest ngayon ay isang batikang researcher dito sa whole issue ng mga elections, at saka yung mga influences that are brought to bear dito sa process na ito. So we would like to have to welcome si Dr. Carmel Abao ng Ateneo, who will share with us some insights on this.
Hello po, good evening. Good evening na, 6 o'clock na. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I really look forward to these conversations, kasi malapit na eleksyon, so magandang mapag-usapan na talaga. So marami namang paraan para mapag-usapan yung eleksyon, pero lagi ko siyang frame as, competing narratives. Marami talagang tagisan siya ng kwento, So yung iboboto ng mga tao, depende sa kung anong kwento, yung tingin nilang pinaniniwalaan nila, So after an election, it's not only people who win, but it's also which narratives will win or will gain ground. So that's how I frame it. So I can actually talk about 4 things, pero baka yung first 2 lang muna yung aking i-present, and then later on tingnan natin kung kailangan pa yung 3 and 4, kasi alam ko gusto nyo rin mag-focus, say, on social media, for example. Anyway, so let me just go to the first one. At the very basic, voting is a right and elections is a requirement for a democracy. So kung walang eleksyon, walang demokrasya. Of course, hindi naman elections lang ang requirement for a democracy. Di ba? Marami pang iba, pero minimum requirement ito. And it involves the right to vote. Yung idea ng political equality is that, on just that day, on election day, it doesn't matter who we are, we're the same. We have 1 vote each. So yun ang idea ng political equality, and we are not represented. We directly give our choice through the ballot. Okay, and then of course yung very important ng elections as a requirement for democracy, kasi after kung credible ang elections, wala nang tanong na parang legitimate yung leaders mo. You have the right to be there, right? That's why it's very it's very scary when elections are not credible, di ba? Kasi may duda. Dapat ba ikaw ang nakaupo dyan? Di ba? And we've had those episodes also in our history. So this election, I think, eto yung mga binanggit ko, theoretical yan, that's in theory, right? But in reality, specifically to the Philippines sa 2022, I think very important itong election kasi eto na lang tingin kong natitirang open and legal arena for competition in what I call an eroded democracy. Kasi alam naman natin lahat, of course, pwede natin debatihin kung ano na ang sitwasyon ng bansa natin, pero alam natin na yung current administration, grabe yung hold niya sa buong political system natin. No? And there are very few spaces when, the Duterte government has the supermajority in Congress and in the Senate. It has, I think, 13 appointees na sa Supreme Court. So there are very little spaces. No? Also because we have the anti-terrorism law, we have the red tagging, and dami. So very little space. But the elections, not even Duterte can mess up with the elections, right? Because it's constitutionally mandated and Pinoy tayo mahilig tayo sa eleksyon. So parang kahit dati palagi sinasabi, baka no elections. I never really bought into that idea kasi hindi naman tayo papayag na walang eleksyon, 'di ba? Because of the legitimacy issue, right? Our leaders have to be legitimate. Dapat naman may consent natin. Okay? So, yun yung so yung sinasabi ni Marie kanina na some are saying it's the fight of their lives. I think because we had very little space in the past 6 years. So now this is the space for everyone that, we can do this, we can participate. So that, I think, what's at stake. Okay? And then, of course, we know that elections is a competition for political leadership. So, mga tao parang laging, bakit ba ang gulo-gulo? Magulo talaga kasi competition Diba? There are multiple players and political parties. Again, theoretically, because we are a multi-party system, right? There are rules we have to follow, from campaign financing to campaigning. That's a campaign period. How do you vote, etc., etc. And the competition is always for leadership, right? Who will govern? Okay, but sometimes people forget that there's also a question of sino bang bibigyan natin ng kapangyarihan, right? Kasi yun ang mahalaga, diba? Kaya ang halaga nung pipiliin natin kasi at ang kapangyarihan ay, power simply means people can get you from point A to point B, even if you don't want to go to point B, diba? So that kind of power has to be really used well, diba? Because it moves things, it changes things, it also reinforces things. So that is what is at play. And normally, how leaders are supposed to use that power is supposed to be reflected in political parties. Right? Kasi ang idea ng political party, kumbaga, kung ang gobyerno yung output institution mo, siya ang tagagawa ng batas, siya ang pamuno, yung party mo siya yung source ng platform mo, siya yung mag-i-input doon sa gobyerno mo. Diba? So the idea, for example, of nomination is, before you even hope to generate the support of the general public, you should be able to generate support of your own party mates. Diba? That's the idea of nominations in a party. But in our case, again, theoretically, iba siya in practice. Makikita mo, I'll show you later the list of the parties. They're like parties we only hear during elections. Pag in between elections, parang, diba? And they're always attached to a president. So, in other words, what's really happening in Philippine politics is that we always know more or less who will govern us, but we have very few ideas on how we will be governed because they're not parties. We don't really know what they stand for, no? Kasi that's what a party is supposed to provide, diba? Na parang pag ito ang nanalo, ganito ang taxation. Pag ganito ang nanalo, ganito ang foreign relations. Diba? And that's not supposed to change very easily, right? So you can really vote based on that. But again, that's not going to happen, I think, these elections. Okay, so unfortunately, we really have to look at just the people, no, and not really their parties. Okay, of course, elections has accountability. Every election is a referendum for the incumbents, no? Or in this case, for the outgoing administration, kasi 6 years lang naman talaga. Of course, si Duterte, initially, President Duterte said he would run as VP, right? So, di ba, naging controversial yon. So, hindi na niya yon tinuloy. But definitely, it will be an evaluation. In the same way, 2016 was also an evaluation of Pinoy's administration. No? So, laging ganon. Okay? Kasi nga, it's really also about accountability. Elections is reward and punishment. Okay? You reward those you think have been performing their government functions, and then in a way you punish. I mean, you just don't re-elect, no? Those who you think have not been performing well, right? Again, that's in theory. In practice, posibleng galing-galing mo magtrabaho, hindi ka man nanalo sa eleksyon, di ba? Or wala kang ginagawa, pero number one ka or whatever, di ba? So parang, but in theory, ganun yun, di ba? Use the election to say, you don't deserve to be there na because you haven't been performing, di ba? Or we want you and your party there continually kasi you're performing well. So dapat ganun ang eleksyon, pero But still, we will be talking about continuity or change, diba? In this case, Duterte. And of course, we know that there's a Duterte-Marcos alliance. So I think yun ang usapin ngayong eleksyon. Duterte pa rin ba o hindi na? Or so doon lang tingin ko iniinog. And I think we have to understand that because of this. Because elections is really accountability. Right? Kung hindi nyo na-hold accountable during their administration, you can use elections. So elections is a barometer of support for sitting government officials. Okay. And ito ang pinakamahalaga sa atin bilang mga mamamayan, no? Elections is actually public discourse, right? It's not just about people, it's about ideas, right? We're talking about the candidates are supposed to talk about their platforms, their solutions to problems, their track records, di ba? Tayo naman, galing tayo sa notion na we have certain needs, we have certain aspirations, we have certain demands as citizens, di ba? And the point of convergence sana is magkasundo tayo or magkumbinsihan tayo, ano bang common good? Ano ba yung nakakabuti sa Pilipinas at sa ating lahat? Kasi when we talk about change, for example, dapat there's something also in it for me, right? There has to be positive change in our lives, in our individual lives, but there also has to be positive change in the way our society is run, right? It cannot just be, ako lang, di ba? Dapat pati yung lipunan ko maayos, di ba? So, yun yung kailangan nating dinidiskurso. And what is at stake now is that there's polarized discourse, di ba? Alam naman natin to, us versus them, bitter tarts versus yellow tarts. I actually hate these terms, okay? But it's there, no? And in fact, the difference is that there's so much hatred, when in fact, we're just supposed to be talking about problems and how to solve problems. And that's why we always have to have public conversations, no? Even if we don't have the same candidates, for example, these are valid questions. What do we do with COVID? What do we do with jobs? What do we do with education? Hindi na ba talaga kami babalik sa school face-to-face or yung mga ganon? Pero paano yung vaccination, etc. So, yeah, let's not. Sino ba ang A? Sino ba ang them? These things, to me, they're just names. They don't really mean anything. They don't tell me how problems will be solved. So I think we have to move the discourse there. And we should remember that hindi kandidato lang ang magdidiskurso. Diba? Pwede silang mag-away-away doon. Pwede naman tayo hindi. Diba? Kasi sila naman ang sisingilin natin. Diba? But unfortunately, ngayon, polarized tayo. Loyalist ka sa ganito, loyalist ako sa ganyan. Loyalist. So, yeah, there's that's the thing that maybe later we have to talk about. How do we overcome that hatred, 'di ba?
Nagkalat na ang fake news sa social media. Let us fight fake news with the good news of our faith in Christ. Join our social media network and be an advocate of truth for the Philippines and for God's kingdom. We are looking for volunteers in the areas of content creation, research, graphic design, and video editing. To join, send a message to aprilpaliaria.isacc@gmail.com.
All right. So that's just a reminder about elections and what is at stake, what's our context. Okay. Now the candidates, it's hard to classify. So let me just do it the simplest way. Okay. So to me, there's one group that's clearly allied with Duterte. Okay. There's another group that's previously allied with Duterte and or supportive of Duterte's policies, but are now distanciating themselves, no? Or in a way, showing opposition. Okay? And then there are those that are clearly against Duterte. So let's go through each. Itong grupo na to, nakikita niyo ba yon? This is as of October 8, ha? Magbabago pa to. If you look at that, the pictures here, ang meron lang talagang COC kung nag-file ng candidacy. Una si Bongo, nag-file siya without a president, right? So nag-file siya under the PDP, one faction of the PDP. And then, nag-file si Bongbong Marcos. Yun yung pangalawang nag-file. And then, nag-file din si Bato de la Rosa, Senator Bato de la Rosa, as president. I put him beside Bongo because he filed his COC under the same party, just the PDP Laban Kusi wing. Si Marcos, it's a federal party. Mamaya may names ako doon. Si GMA is there because GMA's group, Lakas CMD, is also fielding. But I don't know these people. I don't know who they are. So sabi naman nila, placeholders lang. So really, that's why I said there, no, parang this group, apparently, they're really just waiting for Inday Sara Duterte. I mean, I think that's an open secret that everybody there's always talk about, okay, tignan nyo ha, itong possibility na Sara Duterte and Bongo. Okay? That's supposed to be the simplest, right? Kasi anak ni Duterte, loyal aide ni Duterte, di ba? Pero sa totoo lang, hindi rin naman sila tight, di ba? They're also, like, in a way, they belong to different factions. I mean, just evidence of that is Sara has her own party in Hugpong, right? And so there's evidence of that. So it's possible na hindi ganun kasimple yun for them, no? Ibig sabihin, iba ang tao ni Sara, iba ang tao ni Bongo. Okay? And of course, they're going to consider siguro the geographical kasi they're both like from Davao. So if they're thinking of electoral votes, it might not be enough, no? Although they probably can also rationalize it and say, well, with the 6 years of Duterte, national na rin yung exposure nila. Hindi na lang, hindi na. But I think that will be yung usapin nila. Yung next possibility is either Bongbong, for President, Bongbong Marcos, and then Sara Duterte, because there really is an alliance anyway, right? I mean, alam natin that it was a big thing that President Duterte allowed for Marcos to be buried as a hero, right? So that is already evidence of an alliance, no? So, kung magpe-presidente si Sara Duterte, ibig ba sabihin nun magsi-slide down si Bongbong? Tingnan natin, posible, pero baka hindi. No? So, ang isang mas madaling possibility, I guess, will be Bongbong for president and Sara for vice president. Okay? Again, we don't know because, of course, we are not part of these conversations and these negotiations, but we can be sure there are negotiations going on among all these factions, and they are definitely going to look after also their interests. I mean, President Duterte has already said, I'm going to run to protect myself from the ICC. Senator Bato has already said, I will protect President Duterte, and not just him, I will protect myself from the ICC. So, I mean, hindi na natin kailangang ibulong-bulong yan kasi sila mismo nagkwento na niya na ganun nga. Diba? So, and then if you look at it, Bongbong Marcos and Sara Duterte would really mean a very formidable team, because that would mean, well, quotes, solid North and solid South, right? Of course, we know it's not really solid naman, pero there's that myth that, definitely he will deliver the votes because he's from the North, Ilocos, etc. And then, of course, Duterte is Visayas, Mindanao. I mean, ako taga Cebu man ko, di ba? And that's sa amin, parang, uy, atuan ito atin to. So, there's that of hometown votes. So, may advantage sila doon. Okay, so that's it. Sa grupong to, we don't know what will happen. Dito sa previously allied with Duterte, of course, you have Manny Pacquiao, and Atienza, you have Panfilo Lacson, and Tito Soto, and then you have Isko Moreno and Doc Willie. So this is not by rank, this is just by sinong naunang nag-file. So nauna talaga si Pacquiao, and then si Lacson, and then dun sa third. So eto halimbawa, si Manny Pacquiao has never really opposed any of Duterte's policies, but he of late has been exposing the corruption, right? The issues. Siya talaga yung nilabas din niya yan. So, yan yung kanyang indicator na hindi siya clearly allied with Duterte. Kasi kina-question na niya yung DOH, for example. Si Panfilo Lacson, as far as I know, he was supportive doon sa anti-terrorism law. Okay? Si Isko naman, he has said that he is not supportive of he did not daw implement the tokhang in the city of Manila, but of course we have never really heard him say that he is in opposition, say to the drug war and all the controversial So you cannot also really say that he is directly allied, clearly allied, but he's also not. He was previously allied, but we're not very sure kung ano ba talaga yung sinusuportahan niya o hindi sa Duterte na policies. At yun yung laging narrative ngayon. Now, dun sa clearly against, of course, there is Leni Robredo and the Vice President and Kiko Pangilinan. Of course, clearly against sila kasi nga na 'di ba parang na-displace talaga si VP Leni doon sa gobyerno, 'di ba? And then you have Cal Yodi of Laban ng Masa and Walden Bello of Laban ng Masa. So their narrative is, they also really are anti-Duterte. They're against Duterte, but they're also they also want system change. So hindi lang regime change, system change ang hapon nila. So etong grupo naman na to, na previously allied and clearly allied, feeling ko naman, everybody's waiting for unity. Parang meron bang mag-give way? Simula pa lang yan na yung diskurso. So what is the scenario by November 15? If you really listen to, their public pronouncements lang, actually only Manny Pacquiao has said na he is open, no? Si Isko, kinakaaway na niya si Leni, di ba? Si Panfilo Lacson has also said that he is very disappointed, right? So si Leni has said that she will continue to work for unity, pero yun nga, mukhang hindi talaga sila, in other words, they're probably all going to run. So what could happen is that it's very likely that the clearly allied with Duterte could possibly unify, diba? And then you will have like from this other. Okay. And then the next slide is just to show you yung mga partido nila. Okay. Para makita mo lang na actually hindi sila mga parties, mga factions lang sila. So si Pacquiao, for example, ran under Problem B. Kahit PDP siya, may kaso-kaso pa sila. I think just to make sure, 'di ba? Kasi ang political party kasi is a legal personality also. So, pag party ka, you also have some rights like in terms of campaign finance, etc., etc. So, meron yung impact kung ano. And then, yun nga, yung kay Bongbong Marcos, this is KBL Plus. I think nandito din yung Nationalista Party, no? Itong Partido Federal. And then, ito nga ang Ann Velasco for President and Lyle Uy. I don't know I Googled them. I couldn't find them. I mean, maraming Ana Velasco. So, hindi ko alam, sino ba to? Although sinasabi ni Pichay, ni dating Congressman Pichay na they're capable of running for president. But the thing is, we don't know them. Who are they? No? So obviously they're placeholders. No? So there's PROMDI, Partido Reforma is the Divilla group, Acción Democrático is the former Rocco group, and then VP Lenny is independent, Kiko Pangilinan is Liberal Party, and then as I said, Partido Lakas ng Masa, no? From Laban ng Masa. Okay, this is my last slide. Next, wait, Okay. Ito lang, just to close this conversation about who are competing, if the elections were held, say September 30, 2021, ang magiging presidente kung tatakbo ay si Sara Duterte at 20%, and then you have Bongbong Marcos, 15%. Yung next na posible ay si, this is Pulse Asia, Isko Moreno at 13%, Manny Pacquiao at 12%, and then next is Lenny Robredo at 8%, Panfilo Lacson 6%, and then Bongoas 3%. So note lang na at that time, for example, si Sara hindi pa siya na nagde-declare, mataas na siya. Si Lenny hindi pa rin siya nagde-declare, pero itong numbers niya tumaas na rin yan kasi dati 6% lang yan. Si Sara naman, before this, she was, I think, like 2023. So, dito pa lang makikita na natin, no, na, pero malayo-layo naman ang eleksyon, marami pang pwedeng mangyari. But this is in terms of, if elections were just a popularity game.
So, Doc Melay, ang ganda ng sinimulan mo na ang eleksyon ay diskurso at ito ay tagisan, hindi lang ng mga personalities, kasi parang sabi nga natin, no, we are questioning the idea of party system na political party system sa Pilipinas. So ito ay tagisan ng mga, hindi lang ito personalities, pero tagisan ng mga kwento. And you are inviting us to create our narrative as citizens.
Yes.
Correct? At hindi lang basta mamili sa mga hinahain sa atin, but to actively create and develop our own narrative. So, sisimulan ko doon ngayon, Doc Melay. Ano yung mga nakikita mo ngayon na mga prominenteng naratibo?
Okay. Kanino ng mga kandidato?
Ng mga kandidato.
Okay.
Wala nang pagigiligoy.
Sige. Okay. Doon sa clearly allied with Duterte, obviously their narrative is that, he's the best president ever. Tatay natin siya. He's nagmamalasakit sila sa bayan, etc. And of course, Bongbong Marcos is, even parang life was so much better in the martial law, etc. So there's ganun yung kanilang narrative, no? That they're even better versions of their fathers, right? And they will, so wala sa kanila yung mga criticisms kasi ang narrative nila, ginagawa namin lahat. Right? Ginagawa namin lahat. At yung lahat ng batikos na yan ay dahil lang ayaw nila sa amin. Mga dilawan lang sila. So parang ganun yung narrative. And then now you can see there's a new narrative that says pag may criticism sa kanila, parang tignan nyo, nililigawan nila tayo, kinukuha nila yung boto natin, yung gano'n. Pero walang diskurso in terms of sige nga, paano, anong gagawin nila in the next 6 years? Hindi pa sila gumaganon na diskurso.
You mentioned about the elections and how it should be how it should have integrity, no, na wag itong mga compromise. Maybe we will talk about that, but I really want to center in our discussion sa social media. Yung sinabi nyo nga po, it's floating all around. May mga kandidato tayo who are tapping on our aspirations for ginhawa. No? Yung isa nagaling sa hirap, ngayon maayos na yung kalagayan at gusto niyang ibangon yung mga Pilipino. Meron din tayong mga kandidato who are appealing sa sentimentalidad. No? If there's one thing that we see, Doc Melay, talagang napakataas ng emosyon ngayon. So, I think what I want to ask you, Dr. Melay, is how do we as people, as voters who are in social media, paano namin mas pa-spot ng maayos yung mga policies nila? And perhaps maybe, is there a way that you can give us or points that you can give us so that we will not drown out in the high emotions ngayon sa ating mga news feeds?
Okay. Una, I think we have to really understand what social media is, especially at the time of elections, no? And ako sa isang pinakasimple na lang na paraan, ha? 'Di ba? Kanina sabi nga natin maraming kwento, no? So each candidate has a message. Okay? Now, what is social media? Social media is the distribution network of that message. Okay? 'Di ba? So, posible na kaya very powerful ang social media kasi parang isipin mo na lang, nung walang social media, paano ka mangangampanya? Mag-house to house ka, magsusorti ka, nakikita mo kung sino nagsasalita. 'Di ba? At pwede mo siyang debatihin. Kahit man yan, radyo, TV, alam mo sino nagsasalita. Ang kaibahan sa social media, artificial intelligence ang nasa likod. 'Di ba? I mean, of course, tayo pag nag-Facebook tayo, tao tayo, pero it has been weaponized in that way na depende sa sasabihin mo, merong algorithm na tawag, ibig sabihin, 'di ba? Parang formula na lang 'yan sa computer world na kumbaga artificial intelligence na pag narinig niya yung keyword na 'yan, alam na niya kung ano ang, 'di ba? In other words, yung choices mo, hindi taong nagsasabi, artificial intelligence. So, kailangan naman, critical ka doon, 'di ba? 'Di ba? So, halimbawa, huwag ka masyadong maniwala kung hindi mo talaga kilala, 'di ba? Kasi naman, kailangan naman kilalanin mo anong source. So, always go back to the source. But social media is very important kasi nga distribution center siya. So, halimbawa, ang ganda-ganda ng message, say ni Lenny Robredo, pero wala siyang distribution network, hindi aabot yung message niya sa masa. 'Di ba? Yan ang ibig sabihin ng social media, no? It's now the new way of campaigning, right? You gain visibility, and it just ramps up your kasi it's a popularity game, it's a name recall game, it's a, 'di ba? So and kaya nga tayo may Cambridge Analytica, 'di ba? Very very kasi because they can really manipulate. 'Di ba? And in other words, what you see on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your maybe not Instagram naman, 'di ba? Kasi dapat Instagram picture na lang 'yan, 'di ba? Walang good vibes lang ang Instagram, 'di ba? Pero pati TikTok nga, 'di ba? In other words, what you see on your feed is what the algorithm puts in there, right? So it depends on your history of activity. Yun yung i-feed nila. So kaya nga ngayon ang laki ng kasi kita nila kung paano tinatype natin at pinaglalaroan nila tayo. So I think at the very minimum, we have to be very critical of social media. It's fun because it's real time. It's so many people, 'di ba? Parang wow, ang daming nagsasalita, 'di ba? Parang may diskurso, pero you'll have to filter things because it's just a distribution center of those, a network of distribution for those who can actually also really afford it, because you have to have trolls, you have to have, it's a business, it's an industry in itself na. So siguro mananalo ka talaga kung may social media ka, pero kung critical din ang mga tao sa social media, posible din hindi ka manalo. May panlaban yon sa social media.
May question po si Ma'am Liana Garciliano. Sabi niya, how can social media facilitate public discourse when the attention span of the users has been shortened and sadly jeopardized beyond comprehension? And I may also want to add yung iniisip ko kanina. When you said kanina, Dr. Carmela, na may algoritmo yan eh. Pag may keywords ka, may lalabas na mga posts, whether sponsored or galing siya sa totoong organic na account, lalabas yun. So, kaya nung nag-announce si VP, talagang pink walls yung mga meron akong isang kaibigan, sabi niya, I think I'm living in a echo chamber kasi puro pink itong lumalabas. So yeah, I think there's the danger of silos kasi ang gusto talaga natin ng diskurso, hindi ba nakakatakot na baka wala pala tayong nako-communicate. Tayo-tayo lang din pala talaga yung nag-uusap, and it's just the ideas are just bouncing off sa mga pare-parehas na naisipan. So, Doc Melay, maybe the grand question here too is, do you think yung social media will really translate into your social media following, or your narrative in the social media will really translate into the ballots? Sa tingin niyo po ba? And if this is true, kasi may mga nababasa ako na ito daw yung nangyari noong 2016 na highly used ang social media by Duterte, at yun nga nag-translate siya sa ballots. Do you think that it will happen this time ngayong 2022?
Yes, because it's already happening, right? Diba? And so will it translate into the ballot? Yes, especially if that's the only thing they hear or they read about. Diba? Kaya nga, the only way to do that is also to challenge. So you cannot, the thing is, you cannot leave social media, but at the same time, you cannot rely only on social media. You have to be able to talk to people, and the challenge is how to do that given the pandemic. Okay? So, halimbawa, I think, maganda itong nangyayari, iba-ibang meetings, di ba? Parang, ako all of a sudden, lahat ng batchmates ko from grade school to high school, parang, biglang meron na lahat, may Viber groups, may ganyan. Okay yan, kasi totoong tao kausap mo. Diba? Ang kailangan, ang kausap natin, kailangan makausap natin ang magsasaka, kailangan natin makausap mangingisda, kailangan natin makausap ang manggagawa, kasi sila ang karamihan sa botante. Okay? So, hanggat hindi natin sila kinakausap, at mga tipong BBM trolls lang, at ang nakakaabot sa kanila, si BBM talaga yung kanilang iboboto. Okay? So it's how we it's really a contest. You have to be also you have to be pragmatic, you have to be very deliberate. Hindi pwede yung di ba? Because people, maraming studies na ito na halimbawa, paano bumoboto ang mga mahihirap? Okay? Hindi totoo na wala silang rationality. Iba ang rationality nila. In fact, meron silang sariling rationality. Pag binoboto nila ang isang tao, ay dahil din, yun ang expression nila na malasakit sa bayan. Naniniwala talaga sila na yun yung maganda para sa community. Hindi naman yun na parang individualistic sila talaga. Meron nakumbinsi talaga sila, di ba?
So, we are winding down now, Doc. You've given us a lot of things to think about. At nawa po, bago naman tayo pumunta sa Mayo, maimbitahan ka namin ulit, mapag-usapan natin ulit to. Tignan natin yung iyong magandang categories kanina, and how it will play out later on in the future. Thank you so much. Ulitin ko lang para sa mga viewers natin, the invitation to create our own narrative, the invitation to go out of the us versus them, at yung imbitasyon na pag-isipang mabuti yung galaw sa social media, na ito ay algoritmo at hindi naman talaga basta mga tao lang talaga. So, Doc Melay, we are winding down. Perhaps I'd like to invite you to give your words of maybe wisdom or encouragement sa mga nanonood natin, sa mga manonood natin ngayon.
Sige. Siguro because ako ang final word ko lang siguro, the vote is sacred. Treat it as sacred. So, kailangan ipag-isipan nyo talaga mabuti, kanino ko ba ito ibibigay? Di ba? Kasi sagrado yung boto ko. So, I think yung ganung kailangan natin ibalik ulit sa consciousness natin na hindi mo basta-basta ninanakaw or kinukuha yung boto ko, 'di ba? Nag-uusap tayo, 'di ba? And to me, kailangan nating pag-isipan. Madali kasing sabihin, oy mahusay siya, matapat siya, mabait siya. Kahit naman si Duterte will say, ako na ang pinaka-honest kayo nga hipokrito, ako honest ako talaga, 'di ba? So kaya ang pag-usapan natin, kapag sila na ang nakaupo, anong gagawin nila? Kasi ang pinag-usapan natin, what will happen in the next 6 years? Right? And that's to me, that's very, very important. No? Kasi tingnan mo naman ang buhay natin given also the pandemic. So we have to take our vote seriously. We have to think about who we will give the power to in the next 6 years. So yun lang ang aking wag niyong ibigay sa kung sino lang. Pag-isipan niyo mabuti. So, yun lang po.
Nako, maraming salamat, Doc Melay. At talagang makapag-iisip ng mabuti ang ating mga viewers sa mga information at sa education na binigay mo sa amin ngayong gabing ito. Bago ko po ibigay ang screen time kay Doc Melba, gusto ko ulit kayong imbitahin to the webinar on October 30 na hinahandog sa inyo ng ISAK at ng Asian School for Transformational Development. This is the webinar with Dr. Chris Wright of Langham Partnership UK. Ang ating pag-uusapan ay the mission of God, witnessing to the whole gospel. So, Doc Melbs, sa inyo na po ang ating screen time.
The Institute for Studies in Asian Church and Culture is now offering formal courses and non-formal courses on transformational development, business and social entrepreneurship, and intercultural studies through the Asian School for Transformational Development. ASTRAD integrates both cultural and spiritual sensitivity into the theory and practice of development and is rooted in the cultures of Asia. ASTRAD seeks to build a new generation of Asian leaders who will serve holistically by combining executive skills and servanthood with faith-based compassion and deep understanding of integral mission. For more information about ASTRAD, email us at isaccglobal@gmail.com or marie@isacc.net.
Salamat Marie at salamat din kay Dr. Melay, no? Siguro maganda yung pagkakahanay ng ano ang nature ng eleksyon na ginawa ni Doc Melay, yung election as competition, as accountability, as public discourse. Siguro bilang mga faith-based communities, importante siguro yung malaman kung how much competition talaga meron both sa national and local governance natin. Dahil meron tayong mga political dynasty. So, kailangan siguro i-factor in yung fact na paano natin isusolve yung monopoly ng leadership. So, dapat siguro pag-isipan natin ng maigi yun. Paano mabubuwag yun? Tapos yung election as accountability na sinasabi ni Dr. Melay. Siguro yung issue ng, kasi ngayon, isang narrative is continuity, no? Itutuloy. Ngayon, siguro baka ang counter-narrative dyan is marami ngayong walang trabaho. Gusto ba ninyo na mag-continue ito? In other words, yung ganong tipo. Maraming nagugutom. Gusto ba ninyo more of the same? Nagugutom. Ganon. Maraming mga nagkakasakit at namamatay. Gusto ba ninyo ganito pa rin tayo? No? Marcos pa rin at saka Duterte pa rin. In other words, siguro yung sinasabi na ni Dr. Melay na actually it's a competition of narratives. Sa tingin ko yun ang pinakamahalaga sa ating na pag-aralan tonight, na matuto tayo uli, lalo na tayong mga faith-based communities, to produce our own narratives or counter-narratives. Yung ganong tipo. Kaya kailangan siguro yung ma-recover din natin as faith-based communities what it means to tell stories. Yung tunay na mga storya. Halimbawa, marami sinasabi, mahusay daw yung panahon ng martial law, ganyan. E di, magkwento kayo. Yung mga kaibigan ninyo, mga pamilya ninyo na namatay o na nabaril o naging EJK, ang mga ganyan. In other words, iba kasi yung first person na narrative eh. Alam niyo yung narrative, kaya mahirap buwagin. Istorya eh. You do not quarrel and you do not argue with a story. So, importante po yan na reminder sa atin, na this is really a competition of narratives. Magandang insight yun galing kay Dr. Melay. And yung sinabi niya kanina about reclaiming social media. Alam po niyo, tayong mga Bible-based, no, ng mga communities, we are always talking about transformation. Sa totoo lang, we have to, part ng being people of the kingdom, sabi, is that we reclaim inch by inch yung teritoryo that is now occupied by evil. Kaya nga ang sabi sa atin if we are truly church, ang promise ng Diyos is we can what? Storm the gates of hell. Ganong tipo, no? Bakit? Dahil inch by inch, kailangan ma-reclaim yan. Dahil merong tinatawag na, ano ba sa science yun, yung entropy, no? Meron tendency to deteriorate, tendency to disintegrate palagi. So you may have a good tool kagaya ng social media, yung mga technologies natin that we invent, no? They may be put to very good uses in the beginning, pero also to bad uses later on. At gano'n na rin ang nangyari sa social media. So kasama dapat yon sa ating reflection, no? And siguro rin, I think as faith communities, we need to heed yung warning about being silos, being echo chambers. Kasi maaring tayo lang nag-uusap and ang church is particularly notorious dito, no? Somebody has said that after yung rise ng modernism, ang nangyari ang church has been reduced to mumbling in corners about the meaning of its own symbols. No? Pwedeng politically, ano man ang kulay natin, we are also mumbling in corners about, our own meaning system. And anything outside of it, itchapuera, no? Eliminated. Now, I think part ng ating being Christians is that we are able to what? Get out of our silos, get out of our echo chambers, get out of our corners, no? And widen yung sphere ng ability natin to listen. Napakahirap po nito kasi sa ito lang, pagka hindi natin gusto yung sinasabi ng tao, wala na Kaya lang, posible rin na merong sinasabi yung opposition, pero hindi tayo nakikinig. Somebody has said na a major characteristic of people who are effective is that they listen carefully even to the cause of the opposition. In other words, yung mga defenders of the status quo. Natutunan ko to all through the years ng ating advocacy sa ISAP, na we have to listen carefully to the defenders of the status quo. Kasi they are defending something that is important to them. So we need to understand bakit mahalaga yun sa kanila. And not simply dismiss it as mga bobotante yan or mga ganito yan. Hindi. But we listen carefully to the defenders of the status quo. So yun lamang po, because we are Christians, ako naniniwala na hindi naman necessarily wrong na yung kultura natin personalistic. Those of us who are educated people, we keep bewailing the fact na hindi tayo, ang politics natin hindi platform, kundi personality. Given na yon dahil ang ating kultura ay personalistic. Kanina si Marie was talking about yung emotion. Sa totoo lang, doon nag-uumpisa ang maraming Pilipino. Culturally, we have yet to really listen carefully kung bakit ang mga Pilipino are drawn to personalities, hindi issues. Secondary yung issue personalities. Kaya siguro ang kailangan gawin is, halimbawa, personality rin ang approach natin sa mga issues. In other words, nakakabit yung issue dun sa personality. Nasasabihin natin, gusto ninyo ng more of the same o ayan. Given yan sa kultura natin na people respond kapag personality, hindi platform. Kasi mga platform, people don't pay much attention to that. Pero pwedeng maging issue ang personality. Kanya, alam ba, pwede natin gawing issue yung fact na, si Isko Moreno, survivalist yan eh. He will, para yung kung anong ihip ng hangin, depende, no? Just to survive politically. Ganun din yung ibang mga kandidato. So we need to make issues out of their personalities. Kanya, make issues out of their personalities. Rather than meron tayong mga abstract na mga policies na gusto natin, ganon-ganon. Diretsuhin mo na halimbawa, okay yang si Manny na anti-corruption siya ngayon. Pero bakit sumama siya kay Duterte dito sa issue ng EJK or mga ganon-ganon. So siguro we will end there, and hopefully we always try and put this in a biblical context. Halimbawa, yung narrative ng moving on. Well, alam nating lahat as Christians, you cannot forgive without justice. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng cross. It is on the cross that justice and mercy meet, Ang Diyos hindi pwedeng mag-forgive. Why? Because sin has to be punished. Crime has to be punished. Kaya lang, ang ginawa niya, siya mismo, no? Yung what we deserve as punishment, siya mismo. So, si Jesus satisfied yung demands for justice. Pero, he also satisfied yung demand for mercy. Dahil nga, siya na yung substitute. Yun ang mercy part. But you see, ang cross is both justice and mercy. Sabi nga, that's where the justice and mercy meet. Kung walang justice, hindi posible yung kahit ang Diyos cannot forgive. Kahit ang Diyos cannot forgive. Dahil walang punishment for the crime that has ever been committed. Kaya si Jesus, siya yung nag-suffer ng punishment na yun. Pero dahil nga merong mercy, ang problema na yata sa kultura natin, masyadong maraming awa. Walang hustisya. Awa kay Imelda, matanda na yan, gano'n, awa dito sa ganito. No. Because we cannot forgive without justice. Yun ang nature ng moral universe. Sabi nga, hindi ba, sabi sa Hebrews, without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Merong cost, merong sacrifice na kailangan to be satisfied. And that is justice. In other words, ang Diyos nagbuhos ng dugo para tayo mag-forgive. Now, in the same way, sa mga relationships natin, you cannot forgive anybody na ayaw mag-acknowledge ng wrongdoing. No? You cannot forgive anybody or bati na lang tayo, ganon-ganon. Aba, yan ang sinasabi ni Dietrich Bonhoeffer, no? That is cheap grace. Because you cannot forgive without justice. Cheap grace yan. You just sweep things under the rug. Oh, bati na tayo, and you have this surface na bonhomie, no? Si Bongbong mausay yata sa ganyan. No. There has to be justice. There has to be restitution. There has to be an accountability. Yung sinasabi kanina ni Dr. Amela na actually, ang election should be also a measure of accountability. No? Hindi nangyayari sa atin yun kasi pabayaan mo na, ganon-ganon, move on na lang. Now, that is a major issue na nakakabit sa personality ng mga Marcos, personality ng Duterte. I think we need to think a bit more carefully sa ating mga messaging. So, the Lord bless you, and marami tayo pong mga bagay na kailangan tingnan as we go along dito sa election. I would like to thank si Dr. Melay, no, for giving us some useful na mga frames, no, for understanding itong nangyayari sa atin na election. Salamat po.